that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
This is a video of Kennedy Davenport performing live at 18 years old in the year 1998. And here is a clip of her in the year 2000 for Miss Southwest Universe.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and to my distinguished panel of judges. I am your contestant number 3, Kennedy Davenport.
Depending on who you are, your perspective with Kennedy could look completely different. Some of you have probably been fans since season 7. Others may have only discovered her recently through random viral clips online. And another half of you might only know her from her quotes, memes, lip syncs, or the fact that almost every Drag Race queen seems to respect her. And then there's probably some people who honestly did not care for Kennedy when they first watched her, but over time started to realize how talented, funny, and important she actually is. And that's kind of what makes Kennedy so interesting to talk about. Her career is not just the simple story of a queen going on Drag Race to become famous. She already had a whole career before the show. So for my own curiosity, comment below what your experience has been with Kennedy. Were you always a fan? Did you end up coming around later on? Or are you still trying to understand why it is that so many queens and fans ride so hard for her? Either way, hopefully this video does a good job walking you through her career, because Kennedy Davenport's story is a lot bigger than just Drag Race. But before we continue, here's a message from our sponsor for today's video. Have you ever tried to watch an international season of Drag Race only to find out it isn't available in your country? Because nothing kills the excitement faster than seeing not available in your region. That's why this video is sponsored by NordVPN. NordVPN lets you change your virtual location with basically one click. You choose a country, connect, and suddenly you can check out different streaming libraries from around the world. NordVPN also has built-in next-generation antivirus that can help block dangerous websites, phishing links, intrusive ads, and malware when it comes to downloading files. With the VPN and these additional security tools included in one subscription, NordVPN is an all-in-one digital security app that helps protect you from everyday online threats. Right now, go to nordvpn.com/GreenGay to get a massive deal with 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. It also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it without being locked into anything. The best deal on NordVPN is available through my URL, nordvpn.com/GreenGay. Seriously, if you don't already have a VPN, take this as your sign. It makes streaming and everyday browsing so much easier. Again, go to nordvpn.com/GreenGay to get a massive deal with 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. Now, let's get into the video. This is a picture of Kennedy Davenport in the year 1999. There are so many thoughts that come to mind when looking at this image. Sure, most people's instinct is to think about the person that she would eventually become, which is a super successful, internationally recognized drag superstar. Yet, I think more about who was she before this? Who was the Kennedy that, despite having an upbringing where she was often bullied at school, along with dealing with so many mental health challenges in her early teens, would end up mustering up the courage to dress in full drag? When it comes to so many queens we see, especially the ones who have been around for decades, it's easy to forget that there's much more behind the person that we see walk through those workroom doors. With that though, let's now focus on the reason why I made this video in the first place, and that's Kennedy Davenport. Now, I want to take you back to when Kennedy was a young kid. She's been pretty open about the fact that her life was not always easy before drag. Yet, one thing that really caught my attention though was that when she was a kid, she made a promise to her mom that when she grew up, she was gonna be taking care of the family. And decades later, she still reminds Kennedy of that promise she made. That's why for Kennedy, drag is more than just a job that sustains her. It's what allows her to also provide for her family. This decision would shift her future towards drag. Kennedy was able to dive into the art form of drag through the club scene and pageant circuits too. Yet, how did she even find out about drag in the first place? Well, a friend of hers brought her to her first gay club, and when she saw a drag show, she became obsessed. With that, she would soon be adopted by Alexis Davenport, a queen that had developed a pretty high reputation among the community. So, with Alexis taking her under her wing, Kennedy was able to start building her own legacy in the drag world. One thing that Kennedy has explained about pageant queens is that the main difference is not that they're better than every other type of queen, but that they're literally groomed to compete. Pageant queens are taught how to present themselves in a very specific way. Everything has to be considered from head to toe. The look, the way you carry yourself, the way you perform, that kind of training is what separates pageant queens from queens who come from other parts of the drag world. Going into the 2010s decade, Kennedy had now spent almost 20 years in the business, so she decided that it was time to strive for more. This meant trying to get her brand known at a mainstream level. This takes us to the year 2013. Kennedy would end up getting cast on America's Got Talent Season 8, but she was eliminated in the Vegas round. This is how her run on America's Got Talent went. She was able to make it to the Vegas round, which is the preliminary round before contestants can actually perform in the live shows that happen in New York, and essentially the most viewed part of the seasons. Kennedy would end up getting labeled as a variety act. Kennedy performed a high energy dance number to Last Dance by Donna Summer, filled with high kicks, flips, and quite honestly, even if you say that you've seen this before, considering some of the other talents that I saw this episode, she could have very well been one of the best. Yet, despite offering all of this material, they cut out most of the performance, and by the end of the episode, we don't even get a proper send-off. We just find out that Kennedy was one of the people eliminated by seeing her appear for literally half a second in a slideshow of all the people that didn't get to go on to the live shows of New York. The issue here is that America's Got Talent did not know what to do with her. They did not understand drag at all. Like, yeah, they could understand that she was a good dancer, and maybe they understood that she had a nice costume on, but they were not capable of understanding the full artistry behind someone like Kennedy. That being said, it did offer a nice contrast to what she would eventually be able to participate in. That brings us to the year 2015. Season 7, while initially poorly received, has now turned into a cult classic. Kennedy is among the highlights of this edition. There was her speech of being a glamazon hooker ready for the runway, her snatch game as Little Richard, her lip syncs, her ability to put younger queens in their place when they were being too much. It was all a perfect mix of the type of energy that was perfect for RuPaul's Drag Race. She also only auditioned once for the show, and right away she got the call that she was part of the final cast, which would end up making her cry for the sheer joy of the opportunity she had now received. America's Got Talent played in her face, and finally she was going to be able to be in front of a group of judges who actually understood her art form and took her very seriously. The premiere for season 7 brought with it 2 official premiere parties, where the girls got to do their own little red carpet to celebrate the start of the new chapter of the series. This was an exciting time for her. Plus, given that she went on to be safe the first episode, it wasn't like she had anything to worry about when it came to first impressions. That being said, over the first couple weeks in the competition, Kennedy would form a bond with the quote, bitter old lady brigade, comprised of Kennedy, Ginger Minj, Miss Kasha Davis, and a few others. They'd have a lot of bits where they'd throw shade at all the younger queens like Violet and Pearl, oftentimes insinuating that they weren't at their level, which was very classic drag queen gossip if I've ever seen any. Kennedy went on to say that some of the frustration with the younger queens came from a genuine place of not being able to fully understand them, especially since when it came to her own upbringing in drag, there was a set of standards that needed to be followed. So when she didn't see those standards being met with queens like Pearl or Violet, it was weird to see them still get praise that in her mind was undeserved. From a competition perspective though, Kennedy proved that she was more than just a pageant queen, being able to be so funny that she always had Rue cackling, resulting in her winning a total of 2 maxi challenges, plus delivering high caliber drag. But ultimately, by the time she got to the top top 4 queens of the season, things got rocky. RuPaul would end up eliminating Kennedy, resulting in her placing 4th and not being able to advance to the grand finale. It was pretty heartbreaking to make it so far and not be able to reap the rewards of making it to the very end. At the same time, many fans have argued that out of all 4 queens, Kennedy should have been allowed to move on to the top 3, with Pearl being the one that many considered to be the weakest and least likely to be able to carry out the title of a winner. Which let me know if you agree with below. In an interview she did a couple months after season 7 concluded airing, Kennedy said that she never really saw her elimination as a result of her having messed up. Instead, she knows that she did exactly what she was supposed to do, and they still chose to not have her in the final 3. What made it more surprising was that, according to her, the final challenge was actually the best day she had during the entire season, including the episode she won, and that apparently the edit made it look like she was struggling a lot more than she actually was. Even though everyone was getting corrections that day, they focused more on showing all of her mess ups. That's interesting because it gives her top 4 elimination even more context, because on the show presents her elimination like she just wasn't keeping up with Ginger, Violet, and Pearl. At the same time, while she does think she did everything she could, Kennedy says it truly felt like heartbreak when she realized she had been eliminated. Regardless, it is what it is. She placed as she did, and now it was time to move on and explore the new world of possibilities that now existed for her future. As time went by, it didn't take long for Kennedy to notice that when it came to popularity, she was not among the fan favorites of her season, or the franchise in general. There would be so many moments in meet and greets where fans would look at her as an afterthought, yet there was genuine fans out there too, even if it wasn't as frequent as the other queens in the cast would be getting. Yet why could this have happened? Well, Kennedy believes that the edit she got on season 7 did not showcase how fun she is as a person, and instead focused a lot more on bitter comments she made throughout. This turned off a lot of viewers. Regardless, it would slowly start to build a drive within her to want to show the world more aspects of who she truly is, and eventually she would get a second chance to do just that. When the promos for All Stars 3 were released, while the other queens did get more attention, there was still an excitement to see Kennedy return, especially since it wasn't a surprise that she got invited back. After all, she had done a great job on season 7. From Kennedy's perspective though, her goal with coming back wasn't necessarily just to snatch the crown, but also to be able to show the version of her that she thinks the audience was robbed of seeing of her the first time around. With that, she came at her fullest capacity. Her talent show on the premiere was a high energy dance number that still holds up as one of the best in the entire franchise almost 10 years later. The issues though started right when she got to episode 2, and after doing the Janet Jackson number, she would end up fumbling it by forgetting the words and having a hard time keeping up with the choreo, resulting in her placing in the bottom 2 alongside Thorgy Thor. But lucky for her, Shangela chose to keep Kennedy and eliminates Thorgy instead. And then literally right when she gets to episode 3, she ends up flourishing on an improv challenge, gets placed in the top 2, and wins the lip sync. More importantly though, she gets to exact her revenge on Milk, who had said earlier that she didn't live for Kennedy's drag that much. So Kennedy sent her back to New York City where she belongs. The rest of her time on the season was for the most part consistent. While she would not get placed in the top 2 again after this, there was only a couple more fumbles that we would see. Eventually though, she made it to the top 4 of the season. With the twist of the Jury of the Queens, she was able to use her pageant skills to properly articulate herself in a way that would truly have the eliminated queens sympathizing with her. And it worked. Kennedy earned the most votes and was able to secure her spot in the top 2 of the season alongside Trixie Mattel. Apparently, production had instructed everyone in the top 4 that if they got the chance to lip sync for the crown, to make sure that they don't stand still doing the song. They wanted them to do something theatrical. That's why Shangela brought props with her and Kennedy interpreted the song as a contemporary dance. And it's also why Trixie was ripping out her hair for some reason. But apparently Kennedy did not like how they edited that lip sync because she felt that it focused way too much on her dancing and thus alluding that she wasn't showing peaks and valleys to her performance. Regardless, Trixie would end up being crowned the winner of All Stars 3, and Kennedy Davenport became the the runner-up, making it so far, yet once again not being able to get the recognition of being honored. Shortly after the finale, she did an interview with Variety magazine where she was asked how she feels looking back on All Stars 3. Kennedy says that it is what it is, and that it's almost like she's used to it, because you just never know what RuPaul wants, citing that they all did a very good job and she feels like she performed to the best of her ability, but in her eyes it just wasn't enough. But she's still grateful for the opportunity. Now, even after making the top 2 on All Stars, Kennedy was still not regarded as a fan favorite queen. While she was able to gain more fans from her time on All Stars 3, it wasn't the dramatic change in fan perception that she was hoping to get. Regardless, she found peace, and was happy with what she was able to gain from her time. That being said, losing the crown to Trixie cut deep, but those wounds would heal in the years ahead. In the year 2019, Kennedy Davenport won Miss Gay US of A pageant. She considers this to be one of the biggest accomplishments of her career because it was something that she wanted to do since the start of her drag journey, since it is among the biggest pageants that exist nationwide. That's actually a component that I enjoy from Kennedy's trajectory, and it's that even after she competed on season 7 and All Stars 3, and even in between, she was still going to compete to normal drag pageants. Like, yeah, she had achieved success commercially, but she still had a drive to compete and continue to be pushing herself by wanting to gain more titles. That is something that truly differentiates drag queens like her as individuals that truly do it for the love of the art. Because if she wanted to solely focus on making money, she wouldn't be wasting her time trying to invest and compete in pageants over the years. She does it because she wants to, and because it makes her feel accomplished. Now, going into the year 2020, there was a lot going on in the fandom, but we'd end up getting a surprise when on All Stars 5, she showed up as a lip sync assassin. This could have been such a fierce moment for Kennedy to absolutely dog walk Miss Cracker, but instead production played in her face by giving her the song Fancy by Reba McEntire, and she would end up losing. She says she did not have enough time to learn the lyrics, only being told about the song 2 days before getting on the main stage. She even requested the production change the song, but they did not listen. Regardless, the producers really fumbled having a great lip sync for Kennedy this episode, and instead we got an underwhelming performance with Miss Cracker being able to somehow beat Kennedy in a lip sync. The next gag would come when a couple years after this, in 2024, she was announced as a contestant on Canada vs. the World Season 2. By this point, the fanbase was already accustomed to seeing queens return for their third times. Plus, given that it was the Canadian franchise, there was a lot lower stakes. This was also Kennedy's first time competing on Drag Race in 6 years, so there had been a decent amount of time since we last saw her. With that, she had brought a level of drag excellence that held up to the standard that we had come to expect from her. What's more is the world Kennedy was walking into was not the same one that watched her back in 2015 with season 7, or in 2018 with All Stars 3. The fanbase had now grown in numbers like crazy, and a lot of opinions from the general fans had evolved over the years to be much more forgiving of queens from the OG era of the series. The cast consisted of a total of 9 queens, with Kennedy Davenport, Alexis Mateo, and Eureka representing the United States. Canada was represented by Lemon, Miss Fiercelicious, and Tainomi Banks, while the United Kingdom had Cheryl and LaFille, and France was represented by La Cahen. That being said, as the season went on, Kennedy actually had one of the stronger track records. Lemon won the first challenge, but Kennedy quickly followed it up by winning episode 2, which was the improv challenge. With that win, Kennedy also received the Golden Beaver, which allowed her to save one of the bottom 3 queens from elimination. She chose to save Miss Fiercelicious, leaving LaFille and Tainomi Banks to lip sync, with LaFille being sent home. The next week, Kennedy landed in the bottom 3 during the ball, but Alexis Mateo used the Golden Beaver to save her from lip syncing. So Kennedy was in danger, but she did not have to lip sync for her life that episode. Kennedy then came back strong in episode 4, winning the Reading Battle Challenge. This gave her a total of 2 challenge wins across the season, and with her second Golden Beaver, she chose to save Alexis Mateo, leaving Eureka and Miss Fiercelicious to lip sync, with Eureka being eliminated. By episode 5, Kennedy landed in the bottom 3 again during Snatch Game the Rusical, but once again, she was saved by the Golden Beaver, this time by Lemon. So technically, Kennedy was in danger twice, but she never actually had to lip sync for her life before the finale. Ultimately, Kennedy made it all the way to the top 4 alongside Lemon, Alexis Mateo, and Cheryl. But in the final lip sync SmackDown, Kennedy was paired against Lemon to Hideaway by Kaiza. Lemon won the lip sync, which meant that Kennedy was eliminated before she could make it to the final 2. And then Lemon would go on to beat Alexis Mateo in the final lip sync and win the season. In the interview, Kennedy says Canada felt, quote, completely different because the production team was different, which means that everything else will be different too. She also specifically says that the international element made the season special because she got to bond with queens from other countries. Now, an interesting thing I learned while putting together this video is that Kennedy Davenport was actually an alternate for the cast of All Stars 9. So she wasn't officially part of the final cast, but she was basically on standby in case one of the queens dropped out. And now this next part is pure speculation on my part, but I'm assuming she was most likely an alternate for Roxy Andrews, because Roxy was the other big third-time returning queen that season. So maybe if Roxy had backed out, they would have wanted another major legend ready to step in. But what's interesting is that when Kennedy talked about this at Roscoe's, she did seem frustrated. Not necessarily in a bitter way. She basically said she went through a lot of stress during the casting process of All Stars 9, only for it to end up in her being told she was an alternate just in case somebody else dropped out. That's why when Canada versus the World came around and they asked if she was interested, Kennedy made it very clear that she would need a 100% guarantee, because she wasn't about to go through a bunch of hoops again if there was a chance she could end up being placed as an alternate. And honestly, that makes complete sense, because from her perspective, she had already prepared herself for one run and didn't get to actually compete, and then had to decide whether she wanted to put herself through all that process again. Now, Kennedy delivered a really stellar runway package this season that represented pageant drag so well. Her favorite runway though was her Mother Nature look. Not just because she liked how it looked on her, but because it was created by her niece, Akira C. Davenport. It was also her first win of the season, so it made it feel extra special. Behind the scenes of Canada versus the World, she was apparently treated like a legend, which she very much appreciated. Because from her perspective, on season 7, she felt misunderstood. Then on All Stars 3, she was a runner-up, but ultimately still didn't get the proper recognition. So with Canada vs. the World Season 2, all of a sudden, the entire crew was treating her like a legend, which made her realize how far she had come with her legacy. Losing her third Drag Race season sucked. She had been in the business so long that she saw the value that came from just refreshing the fan base with your presence and the nice little boost and bookings that comes for the year. Yet most people would have imagined that this would be the end in terms of competing on the show. But in less than 2 years, she would be back on our screens yet again. In 2026, it was announced that Kennedy Davenport would be competing on All Stars 11, officially returning to compete for a 4th season. They would be doing a tournament format. Kennedy would be in the purple bracket, which would take place on episodes 7, 8, and 9, featuring a total of 6 queens. She'd be competing alongside Jasmine Kennedy, Joey J, Sugarcane, Sam Star, and Hershey LaCourge-Tay. Off the bat, she was seen as one of the biggest frontrunners of the group, and she did go on to find a lot of success. Out of the 3 episodes, she would end up placing in the top 2 for the 2nd and 3rd, earning the most amount of points by the time the bracket was all said and done. That being said, once the merge started on episode 10, she would end up landing in the bottom 2 against the Curious C. Davenport, and delivered what has turned into one of the most viral lip syncs in years. These were 2 OG queens, but not just that, they represented what it meant to be part of drag excellence, and a member of the House of Davenport. We were finally seeing a showdown between 2 legendary performers with an iconic song and pure raw emotion being displayed. It was like seeing a spark of the magic of the drag race that we had all come to love. Regardless, Kennedy would end up losing, placing 8th, the lowest she had ever placed out of all 4 seasons she competed on. Now, we all know at the moment there's a lot of love that's been shown towards Kennedy, yet that wasn't always the case. There was a shift that happened with the fan base between the past decade, because the fans today celebrate Kennedy in droves, constantly shouting out how talented she is, showing her love on social media, and cheering her on with everything she's done, especially once the purple bracket started airing and we got to see how much she was slaying. Yet the fan base shortly after All Stars 3 still didn't hold Kennedy to a very high standard. This is what I like to call the legacy queen effect. Her essence on the drag race ecosystem has evolved from being just another name to one of the biggest names in the main legacy of the franchise's golden years. To so many new fans that haven't watched her her on season 7, they see how much hype is built around Kennedy. So to them, and many of us, she's a walking legend. That being said, why did fans completely misread Kennedy? A big reason Kennedy was so disliked after season 7 was because viewers didn't like how transparent she was with her opinions. She wasn't afraid to voice her frustration when another contestant was getting praise that she didn't think they necessarily deserved. Regardless, those moments where people viewed her as quote bitter were usually overshadowed by the fact that she was consistently doing exceptionally well in the competition. I also think that the cast of season 7 played into this. The cast had a lot of queens who delivered their humor with irony and self-awareness, but Kennedy didn't really do it that way. When she said something shady, she genuinely meant it. And it took a while, but people eventually realized that what they originally interpreted as bitterness was literally just Kennedy being brutally honest. Now, in 2026, from the moment All Stars 11 promos dropped, and especially once Bracket 3 started airing, it felt like the fandom was rallying behind Kennedy more than ever before. There's this energy now where people genuinely want to celebrate queens who've been in the business for decades while still proving she's one of the strongest competitors in the room. It's honestly refreshing to see the reception that she's gotten on All Stars 11, because she's upheld herself as such a talented performer for so many years, while earning the respect of countless queens from across the industry. At this point, I think it's fair to say that she cemented herself as one of the greatest queens to ever come out of Drag Race. That being said, why is it that, ignoring the fans, that Kennedy is so highly respected among some of the other Ru girls in the industry? Well, I thought about it, and ultimately, I think that when it comes down to it, it's that because Kennedy represents something beyond just being a Ru girl, she's also a drag legend who built her reputation through the pageant world long before Drag Race introduced her to a mainstream audience. And the reason that matters is because the concept of classic drag has slowly been dying over the past decade. Not because drag itself is dying, because it never will, but because it's evolved into something much broader. A lot of newer queens today tend to chase similar aesthetics, wanting to look like runway models while also doing high kicks and flips. Kennedy has all the skills to do the same kicks and flips, but what separates her is that she also has the talent and depth to perform in so many different ways. She doesn't build performances around tricks, she uses those tricks to elevate the performance itself. That's why her recent lip sync with Akira C. Davenport and Hershey LaCour on All Stars 11 became so viral. They have an X factor that we don't get to see very often anymore. Her creativity, storytelling, and years of experience come together to create performances that feel genuinely engaging rather than just impressive. That's why, despite being such a veteran of drag, Kennedy somehow continues to exceed people's expectations. The impressive part is that Kennedy is now 45 years old and still performs at an incredible high level. She still has the same performance ability that made people fall in love with her 10, 20, and even 30 years ago. Even beyond the physical aspect, I think what really stands out now is her confidence. Kennedy walks onto the stage with nothing left to prove. She knows exactly who she is as a performer, and that confidence makes every performance feel effortless. That being said, Kennedy is still a human being at the end of the day. And there will eventually come a time where she won't be able to perform at the same level simply because her body won't allow it anymore. That's exactly why it's so important to celebrate her while we still can. If she's performing in your city, go see her. I had the chance to watch her perform live in Montreal last year, and it was genuinely one of the coolest experiences I've had. Like, she performed as if it was the last time she was going to step on stage. Eventually, Kennedy says that in the future, maybe she'll end up being a mentor for younger queens, supporting them in preparing for pageants and finding a purpose to still be able to share her talent with the world. With that, I want to leave you guys with this message. Do yourself a solid and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you enjoyed watching it, and comment below what you thought. Right now, go to nordvpn.com/GreenGay to get a massive deal with 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. It also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it without being locked into anything. The best deal on NordVPN is available through my URL, nordvpn.com/GreenGay. Seriously, if you don't already have a VPN, take this as your sign. It makes streaming and everyday browsing so much easier. Again, go to nordvpn.com/GreenGay to get a massive deal with 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Sari Tish, Las Potitas, Cool Gal Nan, Jet Sam Adams, and Natasha De Leon. And in the Gay Squad, we have Lone Resident, Christine Gregory. And in the Green Squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch, but a Keek, Jack Beck, Galeria Gomez, Sarah G, Scarlet Rose, Boiled Peanut, Not an Omelet, but an Egg, Max Whale, Dea, Dea, and Niall O'Hearain. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. I'll see you guys next time.